Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to Vlog 100. We got there. Woo, 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 woo. And the vlog this week is titled, What Makes a PhD a PhD? Brilliant topic, suggestion from Todd. You rock, Todd. We'll talk about Todd in this vlog in 1 second, but I just want to say an enormous thank you to everybody who's carried me through these 100 vlogs. We've had car alarms, we've had leaf blowers, we've had minus temperatures, we've had snow, and I've met the most amazing people as I've travelled the earth in the last 2 years or so. So we're at vlog 100, and I thought, what a great topic. Todd suggested it. What makes a PhD a PhD? Now, Todd is very precious to us in the Office of Graduate Research. He's just about to enter his second year, and he is a fantastic young man, a great scholar, and Todd is a reminder to me, and I know my colleagues in the office, every single day about why a PhD matters to an individual, to an institution, and indeed to a country. So you rock, Todd, and it seems great in vlog 100 that we acknowledge your fabulousness. Now, Todd came up with this suggestion because in the first year of his candidature, he's been reading a lot of PhDs. He's also been reading a lot of those how-to guides, how to do a PhD, invariably written by people who have no teaching qualifications, either haven't finished their own PhD or did it some time ago. But anyway, so what Todd was wondering as he read all these PhDs and read all these how-to guides is there anything that actually creates a genre or an oeuvre of a PhD? What actually makes a PhD, considering the diversity of the genre? Wow, fantastic suggestion, brilliant suggestion, and it seemed really appropriate on this very special vlog to deliver this to you. So Todd is absolutely right to acknowledge the diversity of the doctorates. He is also absolutely right to acknowledge that this diversity is a problem for quality assurance. Diversity and quality are very difficult to manage. And the reason for that is the PhD is the gold standard. It is the highest qualification we grant at a university. So therefore, if we dumb that qualification down, if there are any questions about the quality of a PhD, then it impacts the reputation of the entire institution and indeed the whole sector. So this stuff matters. The other important thing about a PhD is that it must travel. It must travel. So if you receive a PhD from Flinders University, then you need to know when you travel around the world and you front an interview in Canada, in Malaysia, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, or in Scotland, that that qualification is going to be seen to be valid and of quality. This is crucial, by the way. Crucial. Worries me, keeps me awake at night. The last thing that Australian qualifications require is anybody questioning our expertise, anybody questioning the calibre of our qualifications, okay? Because you are going to have to front an interview. You are somewhere on this planet on multiple occasions, and they're going to look at your CV and they're going to see a PhD from Australia, from Flinders University, say. They're going to see that. Now, if the panel has any doubts or subjectivities or worries about the Australian doctorate in terms of quality, then you are immediately on the back foot. And we don't want that. So the way we address that huge meta issue is ensure that quality protocols are in place. And that, of course, is linked with what actually is a PhD. So what is a characteristic, or are there characteristics of this qualification that allow it to travel seamlessly around the world? There are a few. I would argue there are 3 characteristics. The first is the PhD is based on competitive entry. So you as a candidate, you are assessed. You are evaluated. Your academic background is evaluated. So this means your intellectual ability is assessed by the great and the good. And the reason why we're assessing your intellectual ability with such rigour is because 99.99% of the population cannot do a PhD. They are not intellectually able. Now, the PhD is an elite qualification. And I'm using the word elite intentionally, by the way, elite. Not elite in terms of money or class. That stuff is irrelevant to a PhD. Who your mum is, who your dad is, how much money you've got, all that stuff, absolutely irrelevant to a PhD entry. And isn't that fabulous? This elitism is determined by your intelligence. How clever are you? How smart are you? How intelligent are you? That's important. But then also you've had to have demonstrated that over a period of time. So yes, first class honours, but remember, now a lot of people have first class honours. So we need to see a sustainable career of intellectual achievement. That's what we're looking for. Yes, you've got to be clever. Yes, you've got to be brilliant. Yes, you've got to be intelligent. Boom. But you also have to, through your career, have demonstrated that on multiple occasions with multiple markers, multiple examiners, quality assurance in place. Okay. So, the person that gains entry into a doctoral program has high-level intellectual ability, full stop. But besides this competitive entry into the program, the project itself, the research project you're coming in to do, that is also assessed. And this is the key bit. The project must have the capacity or the potential to provide an original contribution to knowledge. That is what makes it systemically different from a master's degree. I believe in master's degrees. We have wonderful master's students in our research high degree program at Flinders, and I adore you. You know that. I have 3 master's degrees. I'm not against a master's degree, but they are different. A master's degree at its best synthesises complicated knowledge, moves us forward in that way, but a PhD renders an original contribution to knowledge. So therefore, originality in some form is the key. So we have high quality candidates that are assessed by objective criteria. Your project is assessed for the capacity to develop originality. Boom, boom. That's great. So doing good work is not enough. Doing work that makes an original contribution to knowledge is the point of this party. So Todd, you can see we've got those 2 characteristics in place. You're assessed, the project is assessed. But there is a key third element that is everything to me. I've based my life, my career, everything on this third element. And that is a PhD is assessed by internationally recognised and expert examiners. For me, this is the characteristic of a PhD. This is the point of a PhD, an internationally recognised expert in the field who assesses this project and this candidate as if they are of standard. They assess you. So this has nothing to do about spruik or commentary or vibe by the supervisor. This is not dial-a-mate. So this is not a supervisor hiring a mate to assess a student. That stuff must never exist in our sector. It will be the death of a doctorate if it's dial-a-mate. If a friend hires another friend to examine your PhD, this party's over. That's how serious this is. Independent, international, expert, full stop. So this is about your research being assessed by the greatest scholars on the planet as being of standard. As I often say, supervisors are basically irrelevant to a doctorate. I'm only slightly over-egging that omelette. But the one thing you can guarantee is your supervisors will not be examining your doctorate. Lots of other people maybe, but your supervisors won't. Now, supervisors are crucial for enabling the student to completion, ensuring the scaffold is in place so they reach standards. All of that is important. But remember, in the North American system, they don't use the word supervisor, and this change in language I think is productive. They use the word advisor. So a supervisor advises the student. We advise you, we help you, we're along the side, we advise you on this journey. But therefore, of course, the examiner assesses you. They don't advise, they assess you. They evaluate you. So Todd, yes, there are 2, and in some systems 3 examiners that come to the table with their international expertise and assess if you and your work are of standard. Now, lots of critique of doctoral examination, and I've heard just about all of it. Yes, it can be arbitrary. Yes, it can. Yes, it can be subjective. It can. But you know what? I back the credibility and the quality and the accountability of the international higher education sector. I've based my life on believing in expertise, in believing in international standards, and therefore I back the intellectual generosity of our brilliant colleagues around the world to do a service to the sector and keep the standards high. So this is, by the way, how we ensure that the Australian PhD remains and is treated with respect, because we have transparent international examiners. Because, you know, if you are in Adelaide, Australia, and you've had examiners from UCLA and Sunderland, then international scholars have assessed your work as of quality. So this is an international PhD. If you're enrolled at Flinders and your two examiners are at the University of South Australia and the University of Adelaide, then questions will be asked. Boom. Okay? If you're going to an interview panel and they can see that you had two international examiners, then everybody relaxes. That's the point. Now, most of you know all I actually really care about, if I'm frank, is standards of international examination. My office know this. We talk about a lot of other things, but the first 4 hours of work I do every single day is working with the wonderful Natalie and Layla to ensure that your examination process is smooth and the highest quality of examiners always assess your work. That's my first job every single morning, 7 days a week, making sure high quality international examination is in place. We have two of the best examination officers I've worked with anywhere in the world that are in this office. We do everything we can to care for you, but also to care for international standards. This really matters. And indeed, as a lot of you know, the reason I took this job was to actually be involved in and participate in ensuring that high quality of doctoral examination standards are maintained. I've complained a lot in the research I do and the journalism I do. I complain about the standards, but at a certain point in your life, you've got to bring it. You've got to front up and go, you know what, the standards of examination matter, and I'm going to actually take that dean job to intervene and make sure good regulations, good policy, good procedure is in place to make sure this university has the best standards on the planet. And we do. I know every single student that goes out to examination has an international legend assessing them. Fantastic. So what we try and do through policy and procedure is we try to empower examiners. So all I care about actually are what examiners think of your work. What the supervisors think doesn't matter too much. It's about empowering the independence of examiners to offer their commentary. So Todd, 3 answers to your question. Outstanding candidates, original contribution to knowledge, and yes, international experts examining you. That's what a PhD is. But there are a lot of problems, a lot of critiques that are corroding those standards, quite straightforward standards these days. And the key challenge, as Todd realised quite brilliantly, the key challenge to those 3 standards is the diversity of the doctoral modes. We currently have 5 doctorates really in play. The traditional doctorate, we have the artifact exegesis doctorate, so you have an exegesis, an explanation from the Greek, and an object, so that's the creative-led doctorate. We have the professional doctoral suite that is particularly nested around health, psychology, particularly hi to all my clinical psychology guys and gals, and education. Probably the Prof Doc suite will increase over time. We also have the PhD by prior publication and the PhD by publication. They are the 5 modes. And to be frank, how we make them talk together in terms of standards is really, really challenging. And I've written a lot of refereed articles on this. It probably is impossible to create a culture of equivalence between those modes. Doesn't mean we don't try, but it is very, very challenging. So for me, the greatest challenge of the diversity of doctorates is that the standards appear to be coming down. So managing the diversity means that some modes of doctorate are seen to be easier than others. And can I say, in the last year in this office, sitting right there, I've had 15 students come in and say, Tara, what do you think's the easiest mode of doctorate? Because that's the one I'd like to do. The idea that we have an easier mode of PhD pretty well destroys the whole system. So you can see the diversity problem that we're confronting. Also, for me, we need to ensure always that the examiner is empowered to make those calls about standards as they move through the diversity of the PhD. By the way, I've supervised all of them and I've examined all of them, and the standards are radically different. So it's a real problem for examiners as well. And the big problem that emerges in two of the modes of PhD, PhD by prior publication and PhD by publication, is the crucial confusion in this space. And the crucial confusion in this space is between refereeing of publications, which in and of itself is crucial and pivotal, and I'm a big believer in refereeing, the refereeing of publications and the examination of a PhD. Publications and a PhD are different things. Refereeing and examination are different things. And when that starts to get confused, we hit some major problems. And so to explain that, let's do it historically, shall we? Everyone goes, oh, look, if you've got publications, that shows it's good, they've gone through refereeing. Shows it's gone through refereeing, doesn't show that it can reach examination standards. So let me provide the historical moment for you. Let me actually provide the background about when this problem about standards emerged. And it was in 1992 in the United Kingdom. What happened in that historic moment of change in 1992 in the UK is the former polytechnics became universities. So you had this fascinating situation where the polys became universities, and they started to call them the new universities. So you had the old traditional quality universities and the new universities. Now the CNAA, the Council for the National Academic Awards, emerged. This council emerged to enable the former polys to become universities. That's how serious the standards were being treated. We're moving all these polys to a university. How are we going to guarantee the standard of the degrees? So the CNAA, that was their job. You had one job, and their job was to move the inverted commas polys into the university sector and ensure their degrees were worth something. That's what they did. Right, so there were a lot of challenges in this movement. There are a lot of problems going on, and how do you guarantee examination? How do you guarantee that the qualification, that the curriculum is of standard, all this sort of stuff. There's also a big problem about the staff at polytechnics. Now, of course, the staff at polys were fantastic, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of those guys and gals, great human beings, but most of them did not have to hold a PhD. So you can see what's going on here. In the polytechnic sector, great academics, great teachers that were producing research, but they'd never done a PhD. The old university sector had a higher percentage of staff with PhDs. See the problem? CNAA problem? Here we go. So the movement of the CNAA to get those polys into universities was also about credentialising the staff who didn't have a PhD. Here we go. So this was the rationale for the movement towards the PhD by prior publication. So it was saying, right, the staff from the former polytechnics, the new universities, had publications through their academic career. Let's bundle those publications up, shall we? Put an intro on, put an outro on, and we've pretty well, if we squint a bit and put our tongue in a particular position, have an equivalent PhD. Now this was highly controversial at the time, hashtag understatement, and of course I happen to have an insider view of this movement. My beloved husband, Professor Steve Redhead, was on the CNAA, particularly ensuring that sociology, law and socio-legal studies had that culture of equivalence between the old and the new universities. Okay, so he was on this council doing this work, and trust me, and this insider view, this was controversial. He disagreed with it, he still disagrees with it, I agree with his disagreement, but can I say also the bulk of the CNNA disagreed with it. It got through because it had to. They had this structural problem. How do you deal with staff that are not credentialed with a PhD to render it equivalent at speed? So that's how the decision was made for the PhD by prior publication. Now I want to be really clear, so that's the history of this, so you can see how we got here. Now I want to be really clear on this. When I offer this critique, I get people all around the world go, oh, Tara's anti-publications. I'm just anti-refereeing, I'm just anti-publications. That is so much nonsense. So I just want to put this out there now, right? Okay, I have 17 books. My 20th book is being published this year. 20 books, team. I have 200 refereed articles through my career. I am not anti-publications. I am not anti-refereeing. I've based my life on the value of refereeing for publications. So I have nearly 20 books, I have 200 refereed articles, but you know what? I only have one PhD. One PhD. Now, would 5 articles ever be equivalent to a PhD? Well, here's one I prepared earlier. There's my actual PhD, and here are 5 articles that I printed out this morning on my zombie university work. Now, again, very interesting, very innovative, doing nice work with Laura Beck, really great stuff, fantastic. 5 articles on that topic. There they are. Now, you tell me, do those two look equivalent to you? Seriously, do those two look equivalent to you? And made worse, of course, because in my own PhD, here it is, here's one we prepared earlier, 9 refereed articles came from it. 9 refereed articles came from this. So I'm not anti-publications. If I hadn't had those publications, I wouldn't have got my next job. But you can focus on the PhD and the examination, and the publications can come very, very soon after, or indeed during the PhD. Doesn't matter, but focus on the PhD and the examiner, and do not assume that refereeing is a proxy for examination, because it's not. So I'm not anti-publications, as you can see, but I want to state really clearly for you all that refereeing is different from examination. And we're starting to see the problems emerging with that blurring. So students come to me and they say, oh, look, but my PhD is of quality because I had 3 refereed articles out of it, and yet the examiners have said it requires major restructure. That's because refereeing is different from examination. Always remember that. So, the PhD by prior publication was that first moment, really, of the dumbing down of the doctorate, of saying, look, if we just sort of move this stuff together, we might create an equivalence. And of course, it's caused enormous problems. So my feeling to this day in Vlog 100 is we need to keep the fundamentals in place. Competitive entry for the student, high quality original contribution to knowledge in the thesis itself, and international independent examiners. That's what we're doing here. Now, if we can do this, we can avoid the dumbing down of a PhD, and we can avoid this sort of sleight of hand, this tongue in a particular position in your cheek going, oh, look, refereeing is really examination. They're not. They're different. So as the diversity of the doctorates increase, and they are only going to increase, we all have to say, what are we doing here? Remember, you're doing a PhD right now. You'll be supervisors and examiners soon. You will be, and great ones, I'm sure. And you just have to always remind yourself, what are we doing here? How do we maintain the standards? So when we focus on compliance, on the basic stuff, on ticking boxes, rather than the gold standard and rather than excellence, we do start to get in trouble. And this space, this doctoral space that you are enrolled in, is a gold standard space. It is a space of excellence because you are. So Todd, thank you so much for this suggestion. You are an amazing scholar. You are an inspiration for what we do, and it was perfect for Vlog 100. So thank you very, very much. You're a star. And can I say to all our dear friends and colleagues and wonderful students at Flinders University, and all our wonderful colleagues and friends and students around the world who have joined us for these 100 vlogs, no one is more surprised than me. I started this vlog series thinking we might have 5 or 6 students from Alice Springs and Darwin in the Northern Territory who might like to see their dean once a week and have a chat in that way. We've now got way over hundreds of thousands of views of these vlogs from colleagues right around the world. So we appreciate you, we appreciate your time, we appreciate your feedback. You are legendary. And for Vlog 100 from Thunderbird 1, I wish you love, light and peace. Tea out.